So good evening. I'm Greg Malkin, the director of the Young Entrepreneur Institute, and I want to welcome you to our 8th annual celebration of youth entrepreneurship event. I also want to welcome you to University School. So first thing I'd ask you to do is turn off your cell phones. If this was class and your cell phone went off, I would take your cell phone and give it back to you at the end of class or at the end of the program. I won't do that tonight if it rings once. The second time it rings, however, I might tap you on the shoulder. No, I won't do that. But please turn off your cell phone. Be respectful to your neighbors and to our speaker. So first thing I'd like to do is say a very special thanks to a very special organization, the Burton D. Morgan Foundation, which is a key organization in Northeast Ohio that's making us truly a global leader in entrepreneurship education and entrepreneurship in general, and really a model for entrepreneurship around the world. Burt Morgan was a real guy. He's passed away, but he was a very successful local entrepreneur, started or helped start hundreds of companies. And today the foundation's mission is really capturing Burt's life's work, which is to champion the entrepreneurial spirit. And I can honestly say that the foundation really lives that mission every single day. And their funding helped make this possible and helps make many of the activities of the Young Entrepreneur Institute possible. I'd also like to welcome Deb Hoover and Denise Griggs from the Burton D. Morgan Foundation here today. So let's give a big round of applause for them. You also have programs. I want to thank many of the companies that help provide additional support for this event. Your program has information about those businesses. And I can say that for the commercial ads that are in here, these were all sold by young entrepreneurs. So for many of them, their first sales experience, their first experience making a cold call was trying to sell ads for this program. So we try to provide opportunities in all different ways for the kids. Also supporting the event is the Young Entrepreneur Institute, my organization. We offer a wide range of activities for teachers and students across the region, not just at University School, but focused on kids K through 12. So we do entrepreneurship education throughout the region for grades K through 12. For this particular event, there were two people who really made this evening special. Rika Parabas is the director of the Young Entrepreneur Market. So she worked with over 60 middle school U.S. boys and a variety of other schools to make the market out there possible. And we've got organizations not just from U.S., but Young Teen Enterprise, Beaumont, Gilmore, and Shaw High School. So I want to thank Rika. This entire event, and this has been an all-day event, by the way, been going on all day, is the result of a team effort, but every team needs a leader. And Mary Schoen was the leader of this Celebrate Youth Entrepreneurship event. This morning, Andrew talked to over 400 high school students in this auditorium. This afternoon, he talked to almost 400 middle school kids, heard his inspiring message. And I want to thank Mary. She put in countless hours over many months to make this day possible. So let's give a big round of applause for Mary. And so now I'm really excited to introduce our distinguished guest speaker. Andrew Yang is the founder and CEO of Venture for America. It's a fellowship program that places top college graduates in startups for 2 years in emerging cities like Cleveland to generate job growth and train the next generation of entrepreneurs. There are 15 to 17 fellows right here in Northeast Ohio. Andrew has worked in startups and early stage growth organizations as founder or executive for over 12 years. You may have seen him on CNN, CNNBC, Fox News, The Wall Street Journal, Time Magazine, many other media outlets. Andrew was selected by President Obama as a presidential ambassador for global entrepreneurship. And Fast Company magazine named him one of the 100 most creative people in business. He's a graduate of Columbia Law and Brown University, and the author of a great book, which we are selling, and he is signing up on the landing after his talk. The book is called Smart People Should Build Things, and I strongly encourage you to read the book. It's great. So please welcome Andrew Yang.
Thanks, Greg. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Greg. So I just want to give another shout out to Deb Hoover and Debbie and the Brittany Morgan Foundation, because we've worked with them for several years, so it's not just that they've made tonight possible, but they helped bring Venture for America here to Northeast Ohio. And I also want to give Greg a warm round of applause for all the work he does with your children and many of the young entrepreneurs and his team. So I always try to get a sense as to who I'm talking to. So how many of you are university school parents? Let me give that a shot. All right, healthy number of you. So how many of you had kids who are selling something outside? Right, non-trivial. So you should be really proud of them. I thought those mini commercials were incredible and phenomenal. I will say some of the lighting could use a little tweaking. And also, your kids should smile a little more. Just a couple notes, editorial notes. So I'm here because I started an organization called Venture for America, and one of the things I try and do is I try and bring it to ground level. So I graduated from college in the mid-'90s. I didn't know what to do, so I went to law school. Anyone here do that? I have a feeling some of you did. All right. Hey, Deb too. That's right, I knew that. So at least for me, I had no idea why I went to law school, and maybe you had a firmer grasp. And so after I graduated from law school, I felt still quite mystified. So I became a corporate attorney in New York City in a law firm, Davis Polk & Wardwell, doing M&A and banking work. And I was there for 5 months, and I was like, wow, this is so not what I should be doing. And so I quit, much to my parents' chagrin, and started a company. And so this is my first real entrepreneurial endeavor. And the company was called StarGiving.com. We raised money for celebrity-affiliated nonprofits. That sounds very .com 1.0. And one thing I love talking to this group is that you guys actually remember the .com bubble, because your kids do not remember the .com bubble. And like the people I talked to earlier today, I was like, let's just redact all this. So my company had this like mini rise and maximum fall during the .com bust. And so I was like, wow, entrepreneurship, super hard. Like I was an okay student, not a good entrepreneur apparently. And so the question I faced then is the question I'm now trying to address day to day with Venture for America, which is how do we develop young entrepreneurs? So as a 25-year-old failed entrepreneur, I found myself faced with that question. So I'm now going to skip to the end of this story for just a second. We have a documentary trailer that I think is ready to go. And so this is a film that's coming out later this year, and I think that we might be having a screening here in the Northeast Ohio area. Deb and I were scheming a little bit earlier. But it is a documentary called Generation Startup. The director won an Academy Award in 2007 for Best Short Film, and won a Clio for something called the Dove Real Women Campaign. Any of the women here remember the Dove Real Women Campaign? All right, you're nodding, so you remember. So the director of this movie is a member of the Academy, got a MacArthur grant. She's a freaking genius. The movie has like a $1.4 million budget, and it's coming out this fall. It's called Generation Startup. It's about young entrepreneurs in Detroit. So if you could roll that, I think it's ready.
Am I cut out for this? Like, are we doing the right things? Certainly often feel like I'm in over my head.
I might have taken on more than I can handle.
Everything is overwhelming. Everything is stressful.
90-something% of startups fail. If I really thought I could be okay with a quote-unquote normal life, I could settle down. I can't just do that.
We're a fledgling company that could be crushed at any minute, but like we jumped off the cliff. Hello? We better not f it up.
I'm managing 4 factories right now. Yeah, it's a little crazy. I'm 22 years old. I never managed anyone before. If there's one type of person that is in any industry, that's what the culture is going to reflect. For me, it always comes back to you have to play the game to change it.
The goal is truly to make it like $1 billion, $2 billion company.
From an outside perspective, it's easy to think about entrepreneurship in this like incredibly romanticized view.
There's like actual poop on the grounds.
it's about building something and getting somewhere, right?
Entrepreneurship is the quickest way to job creation. It's the same thing that made it important to have entrepreneurs here 100 years ago.
So it's probably the best job I've ever had.
What's at stake is, what is our economy going to look like? Where are the jobs going to come from?
Cool. This is something that we all want in our lives.
Thank you so much. Alright. I definitely did not see any of this coming.
It's about giving America that spirit and character that it once had.
So, that film's coming out, so I'm going to talk a little bit about how we got from Andrew, failed entrepreneur, approximately, now 15 years ago, and to the people depicted in that film. So when my company crashed and burned, I then had a series of choices. I'm actually going to throw this out to you. So let's imagine, how many of you are parents? Raise your hand if you're parents. I'm a parent too. I've got a 3-year-old and a 7-month-old. So I admire all of you who have like ambulatory children that are like sentient and, like don't require quite as much equipment. So let's say it's X years from now, your child has matured, they've started a company and it's failed, they're 25, and they come to you and say, Mom, Dad, like, what should I do? I really want to be an entrepreneur. I remember that Asian guy talking like 10 years ago, and I still want to do it. But my company failed, so what should I do now? So what are you going to tell them, parents? Someone had their hand up. That's a parent. What's the next move? Go to law school. Are you a lawyer? It's very, very, very reasonable. Yes. Do it again. It's fine advice. Though in that case, I will say it was like 2002, and like no one wanted to do anything again. It's like, plus I was broke, and I owed $100K in law school debt. Yeah. So, other parental advice? Find out why you failed, and then avoid doing that again. Yeah, that's good advice. I think there's a hand toward the back of the mezzanine. Yeah. Yeah. So your neighbor, what kind of job? No, pass the baton to your neighbor. Oh, so just anything that would pay me, which is pretty accurate. So I was 25. I just lost investors about $250,000. I did have $100K in law school debt, so that's all real. And my parents were like, "What the heck happened to you? Didn't you used to be smart?" And so then I said, yes, I did used to be smart. But then so what I tried to do is I needed a job because I was broke. But the job I found was to work for a more experienced entrepreneur who was building a company. I thought to myself, if I followed that guy around, then I'd learn something. So I worked for another startup called MMF Systems. I was employee number 4. That company raised about $7 million and went from 0 to about $3 million in revenue when I was there. So I grew a team and had a great run and learned a ton. And then at that point, I felt like I'd learned something. So I became the CEO in waiting and then CEO of a test prep company called Manhattan GMAT. Anyone here go to business school? So I figured a few. So you remember the GMAT from back in the day. I ran this GMAT prep company that was quite small when I joined it, and we grew to become #1 in the United States, and were then acquired by the Washington Post in their Kaplan division in 2009. We essentially were whipping them in the market, and then the CEO of Kaplan calls me and is like, "Hey, can we talk? We have lunch." And I'm like, "Interesting. I wonder what this conversation is going to be about." And he's like, "Hey, we're kind of tired of you whipping us. Can we team up?" Which is a euphemism for can we bring a bag of money to your office and then take your company? To which I was like, maybe you can. Maybe you can, JP. Maybe you can. So we were acquired by that company in 2009. I then had the standard employment agreement with the new public company parent. And while I was at Manhattan GMAT teaching people about triangles and whatnot, this is what I saw, which is that we had a ton of talent that were heading to Wall Street firms, management consulting firms. In this day and age, you could throw Facebook and Google and big tech on there as well, law school, and not enough heading to startups and early stage growth companies in different parts of the country. And I taught literally hundreds of the analysts at Goldman Sachs, McKinsey, JP Morgan, Morgan Stanley. So I saw all these smart kids that reminded me of me at the law firm, where they had gotten good grades and been recruited and been high achieving, but they didn't like their jobs, they didn't know why they were doing it. So they're taking the GMAT to go to business school to hit the reset button and figure it out and get their 100K in debt like I had. And I was like, wow, what a weird elaborate ringer that so many of us are going through. Like, I thought it was just a law school thing, but it turns out it's more or less a smart people thing. At least in New York, because I lived in Manhattan. Keep in mind, this is all very Manhattan-centered. All right. So this is what I saw, and so I started digging into it because I literally was, staring at 20-something-year-olds' career paths every day for 6 years or so. And so these were the choices that people were making out of Harvard. Anyone here go to Harvard? I'm sure there are a few of you. All right, we got a handsome gentleman who looks like a Harvard grad, actually. That was like essential casting. And another one? Another handsome gentleman who looks like a Harvard grad. Man, they really keep it, consistent. That's right. All right, so this might not be shocking. This is probably not that dissimilar from when you guys graduated. So these are the paths. The top 5 most popular paths absorb a literal majority, like maybe 60, 65% or so. And I just let you guys take a look at this. So I'm going to ask a question of the adults in the room. First, how surprising is this or unsurprising? Any thoughts, reactions? Makes sense? Yeah, unsurprising. And then I'm going to ask an unanswered question, which is like, what do you think about this? If you had like the magic power to like rearrange it all. And I'm not sure who you'd have to be to rearrange it all. Like, I don't think the president of Harvard could like necessarily rearrange this all if they put their mind to it. So just to show it's not a Harvard thing, excuse me, if you went to any major national university, the same trends hold. The fact that I went to law school after graduating from Brown was very, very normal. Like there were, and the fact that I moved to New York was very, very normal too. So a number of you went to some of these schools, I know, and if you look at any of the major employers, they look the same at most of these schools. There's not even that much regional differentiation. So then what does that mean in terms of geographic dispersion? Where are the people going to move to work if they come from these schools and get recruited by these employers? They're going to move to one of these 6 cities: New York, San Francisco, Boston, DC, LA, Chicago. Almost regardless of where they grew up, because this is where the talent flows are being directed. And one of the things that I saw was that none of this is accidental. It is all a product of vast levels of resources being put to work. So if you live here in Cleveland, you've probably seen this from a particular vantage point. And I have friends who I went to school with who are from this region who now live in San Francisco and New York, truthfully. I mean, because they went to fancy schools, and like that's where they wound up. Now, some of them have very strong ties here still and root for me from afar. They're like, yo, man, that's freaking awesome. You go in there, say hey to everyone for me, whatever that means. But these are this is the talent flow picture here in the US right now. So this is what I saw for 6 years at Manhattan GMAT, and I thought to myself, wow, this seems like kind of a disaster. Because we have so many people doing the same things for the same firms in the same industries in the same places. We joke at Venture for America that our smart people are doing 6 things in 6 places. And there's so many other things to be done in so many other places, including incredibly promising growth companies here in Northeast Ohio. So why is it then that so many of our young people, myself included, I'm not that young though, I'm not a millennial though, like sometimes I get mistaken for one, which gratifies me immensely when it happens. But so what is it that young people are looking for? Why is it that so many are taking the same paths? And you can, if you're a parent, you can just harken back to your own experience. It's cool. Things haven't changed that much. So what are the factors? You have some thoughts, sir?
Debt service.
Debt service, yes. So one is money. Money is certainly on the list. And from the outside looking in, people think that it's all about the money, that like Wall Street, big tech, consulting, law to some extent all pay more, so that's what people are doing. But there are many non-monetary factors that are equally important. And so I just want to ask, what do you guys think they might be? I'm sorry? Lifestyle. Yeah, lifestyle is important. So what aspects of lifestyle? What do you mean specifically? Do you mean you mean something, but I don't want to put words here. So what facets of lifestyle? What do you all think? Anything else on this list? Yeah, you want to keep going? I know you have some ideas. Come on, parents, you know, you were here not that long ago. Live in a cool city. What defines cool? Other young people, community. So that's certainly on the list. Community, social context, friends are going there. What else? Prestige, that's number one. Who said that? Thank you, sir. What's your name? Rod. So yeah, Rod says prestige. Let's get on a resume. So prestige, money, community. Anything else? Opportunity, for sure. Training, because virtually no college senior sees him or herself as complete. Our brains don't finish wiring until we're 28. So if you're 21 or 22, you think, I need training. And the big firms offer that explicitly. They say, hey, you don't know what's going on. It's cool. Come to Mother Merrill. Actually, Merrill doesn't even exist anymore. Come to Mother Morgan Stanley, and we will turn you into a commercial actor. So the list looks something like prestige, clearly marked. This is a big deal. They freaking recruit. Progress, opens doors, optionality. A lot of it is like, I don't know what I want to do, so if I do this, I'll keep my options open. Money, gain skills, community, and then do good, make the world better, pro-social, which includes very high-moneyed careers because the thought process is I need to become a baller before I can do good. First baller, then do good, which not unreasonable. So these are the decision rules that young people adopt. And we've tested this out on literally, at this point, thousands of young people, and they say, yeah, this is what drives us. So, so that's the list. And that's the list that firms are building on and capitalizing on. So I saw this again for years and years, and I was like, okay, I think I see that there are all these non-monetary things that will drive talent. And so if you were looking at startups, why are young people then not going to pursue startups as like a job in their early 20s? Instability, risk, hard to find. Who said that? That's genius, man. What's your name? Fem? Finn. Tim. Thanks. So it's like just saying Robert. No. So Tim says they're hard to find, and that's super the case because it's not hard to find the consulting firm because they're there with a giant booth, like setting up cocktail hour. But the startup can't do that, and they can't do that months in advance. So it's hard to find. You're not recruited. It's unstable. You don't know what you're getting into. You're doing it alone. It's risky, high risk, uncertain reward. So for a high-achieving young person, it becomes borderline irrational to move in this direction if they're being presented with certain opportunities. And that's what we're seeing out of various institutions. And so, and that includes also geographies. So here's the thought question. What if the same proportion of talent that's currently flowing to Wall Street, management consulting, law school, big tech, were instead going to startups here in Cleveland and Columbus and Cincinnati and St. Louis and Baltimore and Providence and Detroit? How long would that take to impact job growth and innovation nationwide? If we were to somehow change all the dials, say, hey, this year Wall Street gets 0, and they all come to Ohio, they head to growth companies, and the Southeast, they do all sorts, like they just do everything but what they're currently doing. How long would that take to have a discernible impact? 5 years. Any other thoughts? 2 years. I was at a college campus and one kid said 1 month, and I was like, man, you think highly of, I mean, it's cool. I sort of like that. So I think the general estimates run between 4 and 10 years. But what no one has ever thought is that this would not work or that this would not have an impact. We all instinctively know that if you have more talent heading in a particular direction, then you'll see results, growth, and change. So this is what I decided to do after my company was acquired. I said, all right, I've seen enough. I think that the current trends are very suboptimal. And so I started Venture for America in 2011. I put in $120K of my own to seed the organization, and then I called friends and was like, don't you love America? And those calls got me about $80K, so our budget was $200,000 that first year. This year, thanks to the Burton D. Morgan Foundation, Dan Gilbert, Reid Hoffman, And others, our budget's around $6 million. And we had 1,400 applications for about 180 spots around the country. So this is what I've been doing for the last 5 years. And what we do is we recruit and train top college graduates like the young people sitting in sort of this rear mezzanine. So we actually are lucky enough to have a bunch of Venture for America fellows here with us. Thanks, again, the Brittany Morgan Foundation. So go ahead and stand up if you're a VFA fellow, which I think you're all sitting together because you're antisocial. But that's cool. You're all close friends. Let's give a round of applause. So if you find yourself curious at the end of this, please do seek them out. They're obviously very clumped together, so they're easy to spot. And you can get, some of their stories are freaking fascinating. I mean, to call them out, it's bananas. Like, just because Peter is right in front of me and we're locking eyes. So Peter's from, I want to say Maryland, and then went to Yale, and then joined Boxcast, which is a startup here in Northeast Ohio, as employee number 4, and then now they're at employee number 18. He's been here for 2.5 years. He graduated from Venture for America last year, but he's still here because obviously Boxcast is growing. So there are stories like that throughout the fellow class. What we do is we recruit them, we train them, we bring them to 5 weeks of training camp at Brown University, my alma mater. We bring in McKinsey, IDEO, Flatiron School, entrepreneurs, VCs, and help prepare them. Really, it's not much we can do, but they do become fast friends with each other because they're living and working together. Then they move here to Cleveland and other cities in groups of 5 to 15, and they work in early stage companies for 2 years, helping the companies grow. And at the end of 2 years, they're either managers and leaders at these companies, or if they want to start their own businesses, we try and help them do that. So this is a national entrepreneurship apprenticeship program focused on geographies that are not right now natively receiving an influx of college graduates each year. So this is what I do as my job. Our mission is to revitalize American cities and communities through entrepreneurship, enable our best and brightest, including many of your children X years from now, so keep this in mind. And when they bring this to you, just remember, it's like you thought it was a good idea tonight. So anyway, to enable our best and brightest to create new opportunities for themselves and others, and restore the culture of achievement to include value creation, risk and reward, and the common good. So I've seen a lot of the opposite of that last thing. Like I've seen a lot of my friends work in Manhattan for the last 20 years, and it becomes not about some of these things. So here are some of the metrics. Our partner companies have grown by about 2,000 jobs. Over a quarter of our alums have started their own company, which I think is incredibly high because I have massive respect for what it takes to start a company. And this year we're recruiting about 180 fellows from around the country. Our number 1 feeder is Georgetown. Any Georgetown guys here? Yeah, of course you guys, whatever. Yeah, VFAers. Of course, Georgetown's our number 1 feeder. Of course, some of you. Duke's our number 2 feeder. So, yeah, Dutch. Look at that. So I'm looking for people that aren't you that went to these schools. Anyway, so here's some of the metrics about what we do. Whoops. All right. So here's some of their friends. We just put this up just to give you a sense that fellows come from different backgrounds, different majors, different proficiencies, and that we think that entrepreneurial companies need all types of people to grow. What are the common themes there? They seem, young, smart, idealistic. But, all right. So from one of the stories in the documentary, these guys, so the house on the right, well, this is the same house. You can see on the left, it's kind of beaten up. Anyone want to pose a guess how much they paid for that house in Detroit when it was in that ramshackle condition? Wow, so you guys are savvy. Yeah, it was $8,200. They then spent an additional $100K or so rehabbing it so it looks like on the right, but now it has 7 bedrooms, it's all occupied. And then they started a digital property management company called Castle in that building, so it's like a live-in workspace. And Castle, I'm going to give away some elements of the movie, but let's just say Castle's doing very well right now. They raised a couple $1 million and are off to the races. This is another company that was pictured in the documentary. This guy, Brian Rudolph, graduated from Emory. Actually, I'll go back one just because I love these stories so much. And so Sean Jackson served in the Marine Corps, did 2 tours in Afghanistan before moving to Detroit in 2013. Tim Digman is an electrical engineer from Brown. Max Nussenbaum was a creative writing major from Wesleyan who was on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and won $16,000, and that was some of the money that went into the house. And Scott Lowe went to Julie Bach's alma mater, University of Oklahoma, where he was industrial engineer. So this is the team that then went on to start Castle. This guy, Brian Rudolph, graduated from Emory in 2012 with a finance degree, had an offer from Deloitte Consulting, turned it down to join Venture for America, moves to Detroit. Detroit's a food desert, and he needed healthy food, so he started ordering chickpeas. Then he started making pasta out of chickpeas. Fast forward to today, his company has raised $2 million, has 25 manufacturing employees in Michigan, and was named the #7 invention of 2015 by Time Magazine. So think about the delta between one more unhappy consultant and 25 employed people in Michigan. So that's what we're after with Venture for America. And this is another story that's picked up in the documentary. It's all a coincidence. We didn't cherry pick. We just didn't know what was going to happen because, it was like a year and a half ago the documentary got started. So here's where we are. These are the cities we're currently operating in. Man, it's a lot of cities. I've been to all of them, but I love Cleveland the most. So those are the cities that we're in. Wow, so much fun. Yeah, it's been a busy 5 years. That's bananas. So the fellows have friends in all these cities. I don't know how many of these cities you guys have visited. It's one of the joys of being a VFA fellow, I think. You go to a city and then you have like half a dozen friends to crash with, minimum. So here are some of the people involved with Venture for America. I mentioned Dan Gilbert, who's a big supporter of ours in both Detroit and Cleveland, more in Detroit than Cleveland. Shane Battier, if you're a basketball fan, he's on VFA's board. I was at his house last week in Miami. It was a nice house. No, actually lives in Shack. No, he doesn't. So one of the things that I tell people is that I knew 0 of these people prior to starting Venture for America. And so there's a notion that I must have known some people to start this org, but it turns out just everyone rallies around a good idea. And that's certainly true of the Burton D. Morgan Foundation. When we showed up here several years ago, we did not have as much together as we do now. So people just believe in what we're doing and see that it's a win for everyone. It's a win for the individuals, it's a win for the communities, it's a win for the companies, and it's a win for society. And that includes all these really, really. The other reason is that I knew that you need to build a team, and who the heck's Andrew Yang? You guys still don't know, and you're here tonight. You're like, oh, this thing seems interesting. So anyway, no, it's cool. Don't worry about it. So here's me with President Obama. He seems engrossed, I would dare say, enraptured. He has very large hands, the president, and so the highlight I've actually got this of the trip after this was I got to introduce him to my wife, which was awesome, and he took great amusement from it. I was like, so we're walking from one place to another, and I was like, oh man, I guess I'll do this. So I reached over and I actually just touched him on the shoulder, which was kind of weird because the Secret Service guy right there, and I was like, I wonder if he's gonna break my arm doing this. But so I reached over and was like, President Obama. He turns around. I was like, I'd like to introduce you to my wife Evelyn, and then he's like pleased to meet you. Turned the high beams on and went charisma way down. My wife was like, oh, yeah. So that was a good experience, and it got my in-laws off my back for 2 solid weeks. Yeah. So the married folks on that. So our goal is to help create 100,000 new U.S. jobs by 2025. We're 2,000 in. We think we can get a lot of the way there because our classes are growing. Some of them are helping companies grow, like Boxcast. Some of them are starting companies. But the real theme of Venture for America is that we need to ask more of our young people because they're up for it. We're not asking enough of them now. We're asking them to take care of themselves, and that's not enough. We need them to build things that are going to create value for our economy and our society, and that's what they want, really. Their eyes light up. That's why we at Venture for America have so many more applicants than we can possibly handle because they want to be challenged. They want to build things of consequence. They want to become people of character. And so the goal is to give them what they want. So a couple things I'm going to say about the themes of Venture for America. One comparison I always draw is that if you're a 22-year-old who's good at school and you're not sure what to do, and you say, I want to go to law school, then your parents will think it's a great idea, it's easy to find, and the government will give you a $100,000 loan, no questions asked. And if you decide you want to start your own business, your parents, of course, excepting the people in this room, you guys would be very supportive, but parents will think it's a terrible idea, it's hard to find, and no one's going to give you a $100,000 loan. So there's no mystery why we're projected to have 176,000 unemployed and underemployed law school graduates between now and 2020, according to Bloomberg Businessweek, and an equivalent shortage of entrepreneurs around the country because we're systematically overweighting certain things and supporting it and not making other things as, and that's why I love what Glenn's doing with Young Entrepreneur Institute. I mean, we have to put equivalent, that's why I love Bernie Morgan Foundation so much too. It's like we have to put equivalent resources behind the things we want to see happen in the world. Right now, we're presenting young people a menu of 6 things, and then we're saying we really hope you do the 7th thing that we're hiding, and it makes absolutely no sense. So you have to present them choices 7, 8, 9, 10, and then say, look, like here are the equivalent choices, and make it apples to apples. And if we do that, then they'll make us proud. So this is my life's work. I wrote a book called Smart People Should Build Things that tries to break down some of our experiences and some of the ideas behind Venture for America. So I'm happy now to take any questions you might have, but I also want to give a shout out really to the Cleveland Fellows because they are exactly who you want your kids to grow up to be. So let's give them a round of applause. Yes, question.
This is all new for me, but it sounds like you're saying that the best way for somebody to eventually become a CEO is to work in a company rather than going to business school first?
We're not dogmatic about anything. If the goal is to be a CEO, there are like myriad ways to get there. What we are suggesting is that if you wanted to learn how to build and operate an early stage growth company, then working in an early stage growth company alongside other people that might have a little bit more experience than you is a great way to go. And also that, so of our 100 graduates, guess how many are currently in business school? It's like 1. Derek Turner, boo, boo. No, I mean, I like Derek. I'm kidding. So this part of it is that we're not anti-business school. Like Derek's going to go on and do something cool, and like there are going to be more fellows right behind him. Like another fellow just got into Harvard, Gabe Cunningham, your friend. There's no Gabe. Gabe's great. So we have nothing against business school. What we're suggesting is that you can do like early stage growth company experience and then business school and then something else, or like you can do things in any order. It's just right now the odds of a young person being recruited into an early stage growth company here in Cleveland without something like Venture for America are much lower than them getting recruited to other environments. And business school, because business school is just like law school where it's freaking easy to identify and apply to and get money for, you know what I mean? I mean, I know this because that's how I made my living for 6 years. And a nice living it was. Like sometimes, yeah. So Venture for America currently spends $30,000 per fellow on recruitment, selection, training, placement, programming, support, and investment. And then the company is responsible for the salary. They're an at-will employee, so they can be fired if they underperform. Not that that ever happens. It really doesn't happen that often. But the company is responsible for the salary. It's set at a floor of 38 to 40K in year 1, and they generally get a raise after a particular period of time if they perform well. Yeah? So what we say, we call it adaptive excellence, which is a little fancy. What that really means is you have to be good at something. And it can be school, it can be organization building, it can be business, it can be some degree of startup experience, it can be sports, it can be having overcome a lot. We think that there are a lot of virtues that apply themselves to growth companies just like any other. And I'll tell you who thinks the same freaking thing are the banks and consulting firms. They're not just taking like finance whizzes. They'll take like anthropology majors who are really smart because they believe in athletes in a general sense, and we do too. So we're just looking for people that are really strong in some attribute. Does not need to be that they went to a crazy pedigreed school. I mentioned Sean Jackson, the Marine who graduated from UC Santa Barbara, who's one of our highest performing fellows. He's actually right now the CEO of a turnaround company in Detroit. I don't know if you guys knew that. Yeah, you did know that. So, so it's not like academic pedigree, it's just some clear attribute that would help a company. Yes, question there? I'd say about 10 to 15% of them have masters in a science, and then that's the only form of advanced degree any of them have. So one thing I'd love to do if Venture for America becomes infinite, which with your help it will. I don't know. So is we'd like to move upstream and downstream because there are many very talented people at more advanced stages of their careers that would love this sort of opportunity. Many young people like the work that Greg does with Young Entrepreneur Institute. So we want to go both directions. Right now we're focusing on recent college graduates because we think that's the best place to begin. But the vast majority do not have advanced degrees. And having gone to law school myself, and those of you who went to law school, there are some issues with placing people who have professional degrees because they have loans, and so the starting salary has to be significantly higher, and then the role has to be much more specific, and it's much higher investment on the part of the company. And then the fit becomes much more particular, and they might have families, and maybe moving is a little different story. So there are all these variables that start developing a little bit further on. So what do you guys think about all this stuff? Like, this is probably new to most of you. Thought, reaction? Yeah. Oh, it's great.
For you to start looking at the smaller schools like the College of Worcester that has a wonderful entrepreneurship program that earned the Morgan funds, and finding those jewels and gems that aren't just at Duke, Cornell, Caltech, and maybe graduate with tons of loans too.
Anyone who knows anyone that's strong, please have them apply. We love talent. We recognize it comes from everywhere. In terms of school loans, it's something we'd love to be able to defray entirely. We do have like a small loan repayment fund that goes to people with school loans in Venture for America, but it's a very small fraction of the need. But yeah, I agree with you on both fronts. So any talented young people, please send them our way. There was another thought. Yes, sir.
So you said Venture for America, and you said upstream or downstream for college graduates. 40% of won't make it through college.
Yep.
What would you do with high schools to help towards that entrepreneurship?
I think what YEI is doing is ideal, which is having them spend time in real work environments, off campus, 5-week internship, trying to get them as much real responsibility as possible. That's where we come out too. Like there's inside the classroom, which is vital, and then there's outside the classroom, which is harder to organize and orchestrate and make possible, and so people tend to shy away from it. But that stuff's just as vital in our view. Yes, in the back. That's high praise. Oh, thank you. I'm not sure if the premise is right that our companies somehow have a higher success rate than they might, because we do, I think our fellows are important to the success of many of them, and we do talk to many more companies than we actually take. But we're looking for management teams first and foremost, and because we're not trying to pick winners because that's impossible. So we're just trying to pick a quality team. So and I've been blown away by the companies our fellows have started. And it's something that speaks to the thesis is that if you have really, really strong people going after something, they'll actually do amazing things. Like these stories, I cannot believe these stories. This freaking blows my mind. I remember recruiting Max Nussenbaum from Wesleyan University the fall of 2011, and that was not like someone you thought to yourself, yeah, future CEO, like 4 years from now, raise millions of dollars, like da-da-da. That was not Max Nussenbaum. So seeing him, no offense, I mean, you guys know Max, but whatever. So seeing that evolution is astounding. It's convinced me all the more that, so when I was at Davis Polk, like who were my role models? It were the partners in the corner office. And I was like, oh, I guess that's who I should be. If you put our young people next to Gordon Daly, a Boxcast, and the rest of it, then you have a whole different set of role models, and then different things happen. So to the extent we succeed, it's because we're taking extraordinary young people who can really do like things that I find unfathomable. Yes.
So can you talk a little bit about your childhood? As a teacher of fifth grade students, I often think about what characteristics we can attempt to nurture in our classrooms, so that.
That's beautiful. Are you're a teacher here?
Lower school here at our Shaker campus, but
Like for me personally, wow, that's a deep question. I like it. So first, let me say, if you're a university school parent, oh my God, are you lucky? Because this seems like the greatest school of all time. So really, I'm not kidding. I was like, I cannot believe how nice this freaking school is. And I say that first and foremost by talking to your kids, because your kids blew my mind when I was talking to them. I was like, I cannot believe these people are, middle schoolers or high schoolers. The seniors in high school struck me as like juniors or seniors in college, and that's really like your kids are going to be just fine, in my opinion. To answer your question as to like, so there's implicit praise in there for which I thank you. I've reflected on this a little bit because I've thought to myself a few times like, wow, I have a really weird job. I must be a really weird guy. And so I was trying to figure out how that happened. And I grew up in a family that, of Taiwanese immigrants. My dad was a physicist at IBM with about 24 patents or something like that. And I was told as a kid that my job was to get good grades, but I was also told that if I did not succeed, it was because I did not try hard enough. My parents were always like, it is not a capacity issue, it's just like you're not trying. Sort of, like typical Asian stuff. Yeah. And I was a very, very, very introverted kid, like to the point where like I was like scared of, scared of talking in front of class. Like I was always getting picked last for gym, so I dreaded it. Like I had braces and glasses, and like just wanted to read my fantasy novels. I mean, it wasn't awesome on that level. So if you want your kid, it's like, but Mom, I don't need braces. Tough, you're getting them. So the things that I think part of it really is this belief I had that your kids really do have to a very high degree, or that your students have, depending, which is that like if someone else is doing something, then you too are capable of doing it. That's like the fundamental thing. When I met an entrepreneur when I was 24, I thought to myself, wow, like that's amazing. That's a thing. Like maybe I can do that. But then there was like the belief that if someone else could do it, I could do it. And that's something I think my parents gave me, that, like you're as good as anyone else, like you just go after it. Wow, it's like the deepest I've been all day, maybe. Best in the back. So to date, about 2% of alums are in graduate school, so it's very, very low. That will rise a lot because many more will go back to graduate school over the coming months and years. So the stats right now are 25% start a business, and then about another 40 to 45% stay on as managers and leaders at their company or another company in their city. And so that accounts for approximately 70%. And then the remaining 30% go join startups in either New York or San Francisco. So those are the predominant outcomes out of Venture for America thus far. Yeah, sir.
What's your biggest impediment to growth? Is it raising dollars? Is it finding qualified fellows? Or is it finding enough qualified companies?
Right now, I think the main constraint is money. And so $6 million is a lot of money. But in the scheme of things, $6 million is not a lot of money relative to what, like how much do you guys think, McKinsey spends on recruiting every year? 60, 100 million? It's like if you aggregate it out over all the firms, you're talking about hundreds of millions being spent. So we punched well above our weight in terms of getting some of these incredible young people. And I think we'll continue to do that because there is a real feeling on campus that they want something different, many of them. But right now, in my opinion, the constraint is money. If someone wrote us a blank check, we could change the country. That's the truth. Yeah?
Have you ever pondered collaborating with a similar business like Color Jar to help reach your goal?
I don't know what Color Jar is, but I have a feeling you might know. So please feel free to
It's just a business Jeff Hoffman created with a similar design, where basically they recruit young entrepreneurs from high school and up and help them develop. So
Yeah, we're very much of the opinion that it's a huge apple and everyone who's biting at it is a friend. And we have zero territoriality. So we'd love to work with Color Jar. Just want to try and activate more and more young people. So one of the things that flashed by in the trailer is that entrepreneurship levels are down among 18 to 30-year-olds, which might be surprising to you all because you see your kids and are like, everyone has a booth. But it is the case around the country that entrepreneurship is less and less prevalent among people below 30, really. Not to say there's any magic about young people too. So anyone who's past 30, like, what the heck are you talking about? Like, you guys start businesses, it's all good. Average age of entrepreneur is, I think, 39 or something like that. I'm partial towards starting young because I failed the first time. And so I feel like if you get a failure in young, you can get up and then you just keep on growing and iterating. If you look at Bill Gates, his first company failed. Look at Sam Walton, his first store failed. Henry Ford's first car company failed. So if you can get enough people to fail early, then they'll get up and get stronger, and then no one remembers the failure. It's also good for the culture and society that you don't have a bunch of people who are afraid to fail. Oh, we're done already? This is terrible. All right, sir?
What about a manufacturing focus? In Northeast Ohio and other manufacturing areas, there's a mismatch with the workforce and who the employers are looking to hire. And maybe that's more in the mature businesses, but a lot of the startups that have a product to manufacture as well. Is there any aspect of your program that makes manufacturing seem cool?
We love working with manufacturing companies. When you talk about the big picture skill mismatch, you're probably thinking about a slightly different profile of college graduate that need to be skilled up in terms of working in like high skill manufacturing. But we love trying to help those companies any way we can. We do have a number of engineers, including a case guy who I think was working at a company that resembles this. So we want to help, though I don't think we're like exactly what you're asking about, though, because I know the number of of workers they need to skill up for some of the new advanced manufacturing jobs is vast. But we love it. And the name of my book, Smart People Should Build Things, and like I mean that figuratively, but also literally. So anytime we can help people build things, we're incredibly excited. So thank you all for the time tonight. I'll be outside for a little while. Well, please meet the fellows, ambush them. They're the important ones. Okay.
I am so thrilled that organizations like Venture for America are bringing talented people, recruiting talented young people to Cleveland. I think that's so important. So as you leave the auditorium, speaking of talented young people, thank you, please visit the extraordinary entrepreneurs out there. They are selling some amazing things. For many of them, it's their first lesson in entrepreneurship. So open your hearts, definitely open your wallets, and support these budding young entrepreneurs. Andrew will be up to the left on the landing if you'd like to purchase his books. We have Max Back's books from Coventry here selling his books. He will sign them for you and answer your questions. So thank you for coming, and safe travels home.